Here's an article at auricmedia.net by blogman Blacksmith of Truth. And the blogman writes, Time Travelers Part 3, Anne Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain. And the author begins, Once I studied the time travel phenomenon, I found the case of the Moberly-Jourdain incident. This differs from other time traveler stories because these travelers experienced a so-called time slip, or a natural phenomenon where people just mysteriously disappear and are moved through time or teleported to another location. Travelers. Anne Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain. Traveler type. Unofficial time travelers. Evidence. Anne Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain published their works pseudonymously in a book titled An Adventure under the names of Elizabeth Morrison and Frances Lamont in 1911. Their current status, both deceased. Charlotte passing in 37 and Eleanor passing in 24. Here's the story of these ladies, continues the author. As part of several trips, they decided to visit the Palace of Versailles, as they were both unfamiliar with it. On the 10th of August, 1901, they traveled by train to Versailles. They did not think much of the palace after touring it, so they decided to walk through the gardens to the Petit Trianon. On the way, they reached the Grand Trianon and found it was closed to the public. They traveled with a Baedeker guidebook, but the two women soon became lost after missing the turn for the main avenue. They passed this road and entered a lane where, unknown to them, they passed their destination. Moberly noticed a woman shaking a white cloth out of a window, and Jourdain noticed an old deserted farmhouse, outside of which was an old plow. At this point, they claimed that a feeling of oppression and dreariness came over them. They then saw some men who looked like palace gardeners, who told them to continue straight. Moberly later described the men as very dignified officials, dressed in long gray-green coats and small three-cornered hats. Jourdain noticed a cottage with a woman and a girl in the doorway. The woman was holding out a jug to the girl. Jourdain described it as a living tableau, or like Madame Tussaud's waxworks. Moberly did not observe the cottage, but felt the atmosphere change. She wrote, quote, Everything suddenly looked unnatural, therefore unpleasant. Even the trees seemed to become flat and lifeless, like wood worked in tapestry. There were no effects of light and shade, and no wind stirred the trees. They reached the edge of a wood, close to the Temple de l'Amour, and came across a man seated beside a garden kiosk. He was wearing a cloak and a large shady hat. According to Moberly, his appearance was most repulsive, its expression odious, his complexion dark and rough. Jourdain noted the man slowly turned his face, which was marked by smallpox. His complexion was very dark. His expression was evil and yet unseeing, as though I did not feel that he was looking particularly at us. I still felt a repugnance to go past him. A man later described as tall, with large dark eyes and crisp curling black hair under a large sombrero hat, came up to them and showed them the way to the Petit Trianon. After crossing a bridge, they reached the gardens in front of the palace, and Moberly noticed a lady sketching on the grass who looked at them. She later described what she saw in great detail. The lady was wearing a light summer dress, On her head was a shady white hat, and she had lots of fair hair. Moberly thought she was a tourist at first, but the dress appeared to be old-fashioned. Moberly came to believe that the lady was Marie Antoinette. After this, they were directed round to the entrance and joined a party of other visitors. After touring the house, they had tea at the Hotel de Reservoir before returning to Jourdain's apartment. And the author continues, so there you have the story. But if you are interested about this case, you can watch a movie based on this incident called Miss Morrison's Ghosts. The whole movie can be watched on YouTube in 3 parts. So just search on YouTube for Miss Morrison's Ghosts.